When is the first card pull for these diehard whitetail hunters? We're talking with Clint Campbell, Jeff Sturgis, and Beau Martonik on when their first card pull is of the year. If you've already pulled your first set of cards this year, leave a comments below. And if not, when are you going to? All right, let's get right into it. Here we go.
When is the first time that you're actually going out and checking those regular SD card cameras? So the non-cellular cameras, when are you going to check those for the first time and why?
I think it's a little bit different every year. And it depends because, I'll have some out at times in Pennsylvania in two different spots. So like locally to me, and then the place that is like a little bit of a travel hunt for me that's, newer. And then sometimes I'll have some out of state as well, depending if I'm hunting somewhere out of state. If I get a chance to get there, usually not anywhere too far away. It's maybe if we hunt that other piece in Ohio that you and I hunted once together. That's the only place really in Ohio I put any cameras, because you got a gut pile of them on the other piece that we hunt. So I don't really ever have to put any out there. This year will be a little different because I'll actually probably check the ones in the northern piece in May, probably, only because we're probably going to be there to turkey hunt. So I'll do a quick run by on those. And that's really more so, in that piece particularly, to make sure specifically some of the newer cameras I hung that aren't from last year placements that were good, to see if I'm even getting deer traffic, if I'm getting any inventory. That's really what I want to see, especially if it's like a new to me spot. Because there's 3 new cameras that I hung up there, and then there's 2 more I need to hang when we get back up there. And those 3 spots that I just hung cameras, those are all brand new spots that I don't know, am I even going to get deer traffic there or not? It's like, it looked like I should, but there's not real discernible trails there, and the deer sign is just really spread out there. And so you really have to do a lot of qualifying on that piece particularly. And so that's why I'll check. It's not because I'm looking to see what's popping nubs or whatever. I really don't care about that until the antlers get to a point that I can start to discern, is that a buck from last year or not? But I'll check sometime in May just to see if I have deer traffic, if it's a new place I'm qualifying. If it's a place locally, like around where I, live, and I have a little bit of history with and know a little bit about, if it's not a brand new camera placement, I'm probably not checking that until probably sometime in mid-June, roughly, maybe July, 4th of July, like end of June, 4th of July weekend usually seems to be about the first check for me a lot of times, for no other reason than I usually have time off around them where I can kind of get to all my cameras. But it's also about that kind of break point where it's like you're starting to get just enough antler growth where, if you have a smaller buck, you may not be able to discern, but if there's a good one from last year you were tracking and he was a good deer, he's probably got enough on his head at the 4th of July, you could probably pick him out. You know what I mean? Or you're going to be able to tell if you can't pick him out, a deer that's going to be good probably has enough at that point to say that's a good deer, or he's going to be a good deer, and so now you kind of start to identify your prospects to then kind of watch whenever you make the check again. And like September is usually like my second check and final check at some point. That way I can kind of see what's around in full velvet. I now see all the antler characteristics. I can discern who's who at that point. And now you just kind of have to wait for the shift and, see who sticks around.
What is your summer trail camera strategy? And for this one, let's kind of hone in and use the properties nearby, just as kind of an example on what you're doing with trail cameras on those properties during the summer, or what are you expecting as well?
Yeah, and especially what am I expecting? Because let's face it, if I like to get pictures, but we can drive around from the truck and use a good lens and a good camera to take some pictures while deer out in the fields. The trail camera photos, if I wasn't getting something with the trail cameras during the summer to help me during the fall or help me manage a herd, then why use them other than some pretty pictures? And so the trail cameras during the summer are very important to me. And there's a few ways that I look at it like you can use it. And I'll try to remember the list in my head, see if I can deliver that. But, one of the things I find very interesting is people's expectations of trail cameras during the summer. And I've gone through this, and I've gone through this with my clients. You have those traditional scrapes and locations in the woods, especially in heavy cover, where you're getting great trail cam photos every single year. And those are not some of the areas typically that you're going to get great trail camera pictures during the summertime. And so if you're putting it out in your really great money spots that are fall located spots, and you're putting those out in the summer, you might find that there's not a lot of pictures and you're going to experience some disappointment, and that's not a bad thing. And as it relates to where those bucks are during the summertime, then my trail cameras, typically I'm seeing 10-15% of the mature bucks that I'm going to really focus on during the fall, during the summer months, maybe 20% at most. And that's a good thing, because if I have great summer habitat and I have a small parcel, I don't have great fall habitat. And so there's a few complexities of that. If I'm looking I'm really looking using the summer to identify mature bucks that are still alive. And some of those I might even had pictures of in January after the season, but I want to make sure they made it through the winter. And I'm using my trail camera to specifically locate those bucks. A large percentage of the mature bucks that I've had on my property during the summertime, and again, we're going to 1 or 2 mature bucks as opposed to the 6 to 10 that might be there during the hunting season, are not bucks that are there in late September and October. They're bucks that leave, and they're someone else's core buck. So often those bucks that I'm watching during the summertime, I get to know they're alive, and I'm really watching for them to leave. And when they do, I'm expecting them to come back during the peak of the rut. So I know where they're at, I know where their movements are, and the presence of those bucks during the summertime are telling me that there's probably a good chance they're going to leave, for one, and hopefully I'm gaining 3 to 4 more times than I lose once the whitetail shift, buck shift in mid-September, to mid-October. But those are great bucks that I have an opportunity at as non-core bucks to shoot those bucks during the peak of the rut.
That's a good answer. What are some of the locations you're putting your cameras? Are they over the water holes?
More edge habitat. So if I think a mature buck is using a big, thick area during the summertime or during the fall, that's probably not where I'm going to put that camera during the summer, because he can't crash his velvet through that high stem count cover and thick area. So I'm putting it on the edge of fields, mock scrapes on the edge of fields, the edge of food plots. All my food plots are bare typically during the summer. I'm planting them in August 1st. I'm looking for adjacent areas where bucks are going out into ag land and putting them on those crossings, those fence crossings. So a lot of areas that I wouldn't put a camera on during the fall, I'm putting them on during the summer. More outside of cover, more on the edge cover. And so that's where I'm hoping to capture those. And so I'm really looking at it as identification. That's the main focus of those summer trail cameras. Now, another big use of those summer trail cameras is I'm always practicing my weather hunting tactics. What days are the best days to hunt by the weather. The summertime is absolutely no different as it relates to the factors that you hunt in the fall that are indicated by the weather that you would see buck movement during the summertime. So it's a great time to practice. You can look at the weather coming up in the next 10 days, and you can say, you know what, I bet they're going to be moving on this date because of these factors. You verify that with your trail cam cards when you pull, and you can either just look at your cards and look back when they moved and see what those weather factors are. I know on the Exodus trail cameras we have the temperature on there, so we can at least see what the temperature was. But I'm really confirming those weather events that take place that push deer movement, and those same events are going to push movement during the fall too. So it's a great time to practice those movements. And it could be that you just have small bucks around, that you have does, that just any deer in general, you can use the trail cameras to say, yep, that was a 17-degree temperature drop. We didn't have pictures the day before because it was windy and rainy, and the day before that it was 92, and you're out there at 74 degrees or whatever it is, and you're seeing a lot of buck movement on that day because of the cooler weather.
That's a good point. I think perfecting that weather formula, if you're trying to do that mid-season, or you start paying attention to the weather second week of October, it's going to be a lot easier if you were paying attention the entire summer and applying that theory throughout the summer.
Oh, definitely. And I travel the summer. We're out in the fields, traveling the back roads, finding our bucks, because they might be a mile and a quarter away, and a mile away in someone else's field, and they're there all summer. And so we're locating bucks there, and we're locating them. I'm not going out and watching those fields when it's 92 in the evening and humid. I'm going there when a cold front went through, and those are the only times I'm bothering to go out and look for deer. Now, we just go out for a cruise and just, for relaxation, that's one thing. But when I'm specifically, I know that this buck is growing up in this area, I'm going to go look for him and find him. And it's going to be on those cool evenings. And I'm watching the same with my trail cameras.
Well, when you're running trail cameras throughout the summer, when's the kind of the date for your first card pull or first check? When are you going in and checking those cameras for the first time?
Late June is traditionally when I like to go in, because any earlier than that, it's like a tease effect to see what their antler growth is doing. And I feel dissatisfied. So that's my reason for waiting until that point. And that's when I can really see when something's gonna be, something bigger. But I don't want to go any later than that, because there's so many things that happen that can screw up your cameras in that time, with vegetation growing up, or if it is on a mineral site and they're deciding they're hammering it, then your SD card could be filled up, your batteries could be dead. There's just a lot of different things that can happen. So late June is kind of like my goal to get all my cameras. And that might actually start, depending on how many cameras I'm running, at the middle of June. It might go to the first week of July, but that's where I kind of center it around that date.
Yeah, I love that answer. We take the same approach. We've asked that question to a few different people, and some of the other answers have tended to shift further back in summer months. And I agree with you 100%. There's so many variables and things that can go wrong. And if you wait too long, then you have months of, lost time basically with that thing not working correctly.
Yeah.
So
I get burned. I get burned every year on areas I can't get back into, or I just don't prioritize to get back into. And I leave them up all summer long. And, maybe 2 out of the 5 of them are completely screwed up and I didn't get anything, or I didn't have it angled the right way and the way the sun was coming up, and there's so many different variables that at that time of year, especially, I want to check them a little bit more than even I would during the fall.